I'll see your ceasefire in Gaza, and I'll raise you war in Iran. Bono, take your little tree and go back home. The Vatican's got a new Nuncio of Woke, and he's got himself a pretty nice parachute. Plus, Trump's FDA approves even more abortion pills, prompting some pro-lifers to ask, are the Democrats becoming Republicans, or are we becoming them? By the way, who did kill Charlie Kirk, and why does it matter? Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. I am Michael Matt. This is the Remnant Underground, just back from the Catholic Identity Conference 2025. Nobody's going to make me grumpy. Nobody. Nothing's going to make me grumpy. There are so many cool things getting ready to happen that I'm just so excited. And a lot of things at the Catholic Identity Conference. The future is looking pretty good despite a lot of problems in the world and in the church. There are good things that are happening. One of the things that's a little perplexing and not necessarily that uplifting is Pope Leo's new Apostolic Exhortation, Dilexi Te. Have I read it, you ask? No, I have not. I've read some excerpts. I intend not to read the whole thing because we already know what it says. It's the same old thing. But for an excellent summary, which I have read, go over to remnantnewspaper.com and read Robert Morrison's excellent take on this, which is summed up quite nicely when he says the Pope focuses primarily on forms of poverty that have little to do with the fact that the Vatican impoverishes the world through its failure to truly spread the gospel, end quote. Exactly right. We've all kind of had enough, right, of this Church of the Poor. I mean, they even pronounce it funny. You can't say poor people. The Church of the Poor. Like they need more bran in their diet or something. I don't know why, but they do.
Pope Leo XIV says that he often wonders why, if sacred scripture is so clear on the need to care for the poor, that so many people feel that they can safely ignore the poor. That's part of Pope Leo's beautiful new Apostolic Exhortation, Dilexi Te, on love for the poor, which was just published today. It was begun under Pope Francis and completed by Pope Leo.
But the thing is, and this is maybe a way out of here, nobody actually cares the world over. This is going to be a nothing burger. Because really, at the end of the day, the Catholic Church in the modern world is doing pretty well when it comes to the corporal works of mercy. I mean, I realize there are a lot of scandals in their fundraising thing. You have like Caritas International, massive scandals, but leaving that aside for just a moment, monetary scandals, sex, everything. Leaving that aside for a moment, they put a lot of emphasis on the corporal works of mercy. Why? So they don't have to talk about dogma. If you're talking all the time about feeding the poor and doing all these nice things, everybody's like, oh, we're so impressed with you, Catholic Church. That's fantastic. But then the Catholic Church never has to speak about the things like heaven, hell, death, judgment, and so forth.
The real problems in the Church are not being discussed. The mass apostasy of the baptized, liturgical formlessness, and abuses in the Novus Ordo, no priestly vocations in many parts of the Church. Widespread heterodox preaching, catechesis, university theology, and pastoral practices that contradict Catholic doctrine.
And where she's really missing in action, this post-conciliar dumpster fire of a human element of the Church, where she's really missing in action, of course, is the spiritual works of mercy. Do you remember those? Little things like, for example, to instruct the ignorant. This is a spiritual work of mercy. But as we all know nowadays, we're asking the ignorant for their leadership and their input in directing the future of the Church. Aha, you're a moron, I see. Could you please tell me how we should direct the Church in the future? To counsel the doubtful? Well, now what they do is they confirm them and they terrorize them. They don't clarify anything. It's called synodality. And if you're doubtful, if you're confused, synodality will only double down on that doubt and confusion. Do you remember to admonish the sinners? One of my favorite, because they've completely given up on that in the modern church. Rather than admonishing the sinners, again, this is biblical-based spiritual work of mercy. Rather than doing that, what do? They bless the sinners, and they treat them like rock stars. Oh, you're just fine just the way you are. Don't worry about it. No, it's perfectly fine. We don't judge. No, sir. All right? How about to comfort the afflicted? Well, they don't do that anymore, do they? They would prefer to mask up the afflicted, lock their churches, lock them down, right? Have them injected with Bill Gates' joy juice. Insist on it. We saw the afflicted during COVID being locked in nursing homes and not being given last rites. by the church of accompaniment. One more, to pray for the dead. This is also a spiritual work of mercy, which no one talks about anymore. Pray for the dead? Are you kidding? What's the point? All the funeral. Well, it's not a funeral anymore. It's not a requiem anymore. That's a mass of Christian burial, which everything is white and pleasant and happy. And instead of the Dies Irae, you have gonna take a sentimental journey, right? Who knows, whatever it might be, nonsense. I was at one recently where the priest burying the deceased said, "It's fantastic today. We are here to celebrate the fact that God has made good on his promises to the deceased, which he made to the deceased at baptism." And obviously he made good on it. How do we know he made? Well, back up. I mean, I thought we made promises to God through our godparents at baptism. Do you renounce Satan and all his works and pomps, right? I thought we were the ones who were kind of making promises. So everything is inverted. Spiritual works of mercy, gone, you know? And so that's why when the new pope comes out, now we're going to talk about the poor people. Well, we've all seen this before. We got the t-shirt, we got the hat, we got the tiara, we got it all, right? We know what it means.
But popes like John the 23rd, Paul the 6th, John Paul II, Benedict the 16th, and of course Pope Francis have consistently spoken of the need for the church to be in solidarity with the poor and for Catholics to be in solidarity with the poor.
I would argue, as an aside, we should pull the Catacombs Pact thing out again, because that's all that was about too. And that's Francis, that is the core belief of Francis's pontificate, the Catacombs Pact, which was all about the church of the poor and tearing down all of the triumphalism of tradition, right?
And I mean, again, all week long, for the past 2 or 3 weeks, we keep hearing this mantra that the church is going to become the church of the poor, as though the church had no connection to the poor of the past, as we've explained so many times. And this is one of those things that you should just have like this at your fingertips. When anybody brings this up, that the Church of Vatican II now cares about the poor, just remind them that the Catholic Church invented the idea of hospitals, invented the idea of orphanages and soup kitchens and schools all across the world for a couple thousand years. She knew a little something about the poor.
So now, poor dear Pope Leo, and I do think Pope Leo means well. There is. I stand by what I said. He does seem to have the faith. I think he's much better. He's really a well-intentioned man. Comparisons are odious, so we won't talk about the previous pontificate. But that doesn't change the fact he's been made to believe, or he actually believes it. It's hard to say. But the idea now is you must do a pretty good Francis impression. That's what you got to do, Holiness. Get out there and do a Francis impression for the world. You know, I have a hunch that's going to wear pretty thin, even with Leo, pretty quick. Let's hope and pray that that's what happened, because that's what will happen. Because the world has had enough. Had enough of Francis. I mean, nobody cared except for Nancy Pelosi and Cardinal Flipich, Joe Biden, people like that, you know, Austin Ivory and Jimmy Martin. Nobody else cared about what happened over the past 12 years. Like, what is going on up there in the Vatican, right? And now Bono is too old. They can't roll him out to put some dirt in a planted potted tree or whatever. Well, maybe not, because they got Arnie Schwarzenegger.
But the reason why I call him an action hero is because as soon as he became the Pope, he ordered the Vatican to put solar panels on top of the buildings. Think about that.
Do they actually think that Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to go over big with the kids? Why is he there then? Why is he an authority on anything? No, he's a buffoon. He's a cigar-smoking buffoon. So what's the point of all this, you know? I mean, blessing popsicles isn't going to cut it. What good grief, what is this? And everybody, the whole world is looking at this like, what are you doing? What is it, like a Slurpee? It's like a Freezy? What are you doing, Holiness? Yeah, the Holy Father rightly speaks out against polarizing people, but then he blesses polar ice, thus polarizing the whole world.
Lord of life, bless this water.
So what do? We got to keep praying for the man. We have to understand the diabolical disorientation that affects all of us, including popes and bishops and cardinals. And we have to keep resisting that spirit of Pope Francis, which is obviously haunting the Vatican, like the spirit of Rebecca was haunting Mandalay.
It's not only in this room, it's in all the rooms in the house. You can almost hear it now. Do you think the dead come back and watch the living?
Tonight we're going to wrap up the show with a few highlights from last week's Catholic Identity Conference in Pittsburgh, because I want to share in the joy and in the hope that that event was just exceeded all expectations. Huge success. And millions of you, by the way, thank you. You did unite under the leadership of Bishop Athanasius Schneider and his brother bishops in making a global act of reparation for the LGBTQRSTUVWXYZ crowd and their abomination of desolation that took place last month in the Basilica of St. Peter. Even several members of the hierarchy joined their voices to the effort, including His Eminence Joseph Cardinal Zen, who encouraged his many followers on X to make the act of reparation from the CIC, to make it their own over the course of 3 days. He added a little something, 3 days. He says, I strongly support this act of reparation. I suggest to all brothers and sisters that it would be best to gather with fellow parishioners for 3 days to recite the attached prayers and perform an act of self-denial or a charitable deed, offering reparation before God for our brothers and sisters who have sinned. God bless you, Your Eminence, Cardinal Zen. We have to get Cardinal Zen to the CIC. Man, that would be awesome. We'll try next year maybe. In any case, with Cardinal Zen's help and a lot of help from people around the world, the Vatican has become aware of what happened here, of this act of reparation. So we just need to do our part by keeping the pressure up, by sharing the link, to this clip on your social media pages and by email with everybody you know. We'll have a few seconds of that to give you an idea of what it looked like at the Catholic Identity Conference just last weekend.
For the brazen call by cardinals, bishops, priests, and laity to change the immutable teaching of the Catholic Church expressed in the Catechism, so as to legitimize sodomy, fornication, and other sins against the sixth commandment of your holy law. Lord, have mercy. Christ.
We're shooting for a couple of cardinals next year, in addition to a number of bishops, at least one major influencer, possibly a Catholic convert from Islam will be joining us. We're not sure yet. And we're going to talk about Catholic persecution, but it's going to be a little bit different. Catholic persecution throughout the whole world, in the past, the present, and in the future. And it's all going to be in the context of the crisis in the church. And this is where I think this is going to be really exciting. Hopefully we can get a bishop from Nigeria, because they're suffering a great deal in Nigeria right now. Maybe a bishop from China, because Catholics are suffering a great deal there. But the thing is, if you want to know why Europe is being overwhelmed by young Muslim guys that want to turn Rome into Mecca, well, to me, it's always seemed myopic to attack them. They're just doing what we would do if somebody opened all those doors to us. Just go take it over, man. Take the space, fill the space, right? The reason you've got yourself a little Muslim problem throughout the world is because of the neocon wars, of course, but it's also, and first and foremost, it's because of the Catholic Church in her human element has surrendered. So everything that we talk about down here, everything that we talk about in this newspaper every 2 weeks, and in the newspaper.com, the true traditional Catholic message of traditional Catholic restoration is the solution also to what's happening to our countries, to the breakdown of borders, to the chaos in our cities. I feel so sorry for people in London. Well, why do you suppose it is that in London they're being overrun by an ideology, by another religion? Because they've given up on their religion, and they put this dude now in as their new bishop. Is it a dude? I don't know what it is. It's got a lot of Brigitte Macron vibe to it. But Christianity's become a total joke. And Islam is doing what Islam's always going to do, But instead of working on that, the Catholic Church is writing apostolic exhortations about the poor and then blessing homosexual couples. They're trotting out Pachamama statues into St. Peter's, blessing popsicles for no apparent reason. In other words, the Catholic Church in her human element, because she is the true church, established by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, right? The only true church. The devil is trying to destroy her, and he's destroying her by causing the weak men who lead her at the moment to lose their Catholic identity. That's the problem. That's what's happening. That's what we call the Catholic Identity Conference, the Catholic Identity Conference. We need to become Catholics again. The Catholic Church must become Catholic. It's much more important than America becoming great again, is that the Catholic Church becomes Catholic again. so that the moral authority of that church can begin to restore order throughout the entire world, and souls can be saved in the spiritual realm, you see? Now, have we given up on Leo? Of course we haven't given up on Leo. It's the same as it always was, you know? We got to pray for him. We got to work to get him back on track, to find that Father Prevost. And what's going to happen in Rome? Well, maybe that's going to help. When he sees thousands, maybe when he sees tens of thousands, wouldn't it be great if he saw 100,000 traditional Catholics bring the traditional Latin Mass back to St. Peter's in a couple of weeks? We're going to go to Rome and find out, you know, if that's possible. For the sake of the movement, for the sake of the traditional Latin Mass. I know people, they still have this idea for a couple scraps, you know, traditional Mass being a scrap, you know, and I think, man alive, it's just such a myopic and stupid thing, you know, to say, because we all got to witness it, those of us who are older. And though some of us were pretty skeptical originally about like the indult Mass, is that going to work or is that a compromise, whatever. And you saw when the indult Mass came back into the diocese throughout the world, automatically that Mass began to restore the faith. Automatically young priests wanted to dress like priests again. Automatically they started digging up the old catechisms. They started supporting homeschoolers. They started starting their own little schools, right? Pilgrimages like the one in Chartres just exploded, right? Why? Because the Mass came back. And as we pray is how we believe. You see, it's always worked that way. Lex orandi, lex credendi, right? So getting to Latin Mass is never a scrap. It's always going to change history, and that's what they're afraid of. That's what Francis was terrified. The Mass, in and of itself, by itself, is counter-revolutionary and will restore the old faith, the dogma, the doctrine of the faith. That's why this is so important, this Morum Pontificum pilgrimage. And I went to the first one 15 years ago or so. We covered that, and I've walked it several times since. It got a little discouraging after Francis canceled the Latin Mass, but we've been covering it for Remnant TV for a long time. They do great work over there, and now, I mean, this is it. You know, Raymond Cardinal Burke will bring the Latin Mass back to the heart of Christendom, back to the Basilica of St. Peter, to the altar of the chair, right there, the Pope's Basilica. What is going to happen here? Well, we're going to find out. Does it mean the revolution's over? Don't be stupid. Does that mean everything's solved? Don't be stupid. It's a first step, and it's a pretty powerful first step, and it's a step for which we thank God. And we thank Cardinal Burke, by the way, because this is huge. And we need to pray for its success. Even if we think, well, it's not going to do what we want, it's not going to accomplish everything. Who cares? Pray for its success. What kind of an idiot would not pray for the success of this incredible thing? Millions of people around the world will see the traditional Latin Mass come back in a very short period of time after Francis died. That's going to be a powerful moment. Pray for its success, and maybe I'll see you there. Because in any case, the fight for tradition just keeps going, friends. That's what I say. It's the long war. Everybody's talking about the federal troops in the cities of America. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, am I comfortable with federal troops marching through the streets of American cities? No, I'm not. I'm not. Of course not. I have sat down here in this chair for years warning that the moral destabilization of our society, which is engineered Christless chaos, can end in one of two possible ways, and only one of two possible ways. We as a society either turn back to God, or somebody is going to establish a police state. And there's no other way out of this. And it looks like the latter is now happening. And somebody had to do it. Somebody had to do something about the chaos. I support Trump on this one. Duh. The mob came and burned down my city a few years ago. Right? It was complete chaos. But that doesn't mean that we're not in for a whole lot more chaos, and that the establishment of that police state is pretty scary. Especially if these levers of power and the police state, if they ever fall into the hands of a godless, woke Democrat regime. Wow. Look out. Look out for the revenge that's going to come. A godless, immoral, conscience-free revenge. And that's the problem. That's what we face. God help us all. And that's why we have to fight harder than ever for the spiritual war. That's why last week's Catholic Identity Conference was all about the spiritual war. We got to get the spiritual war in place, friends. We got to get people back on their knees. We got to get the Catholic Church speaking like the Catholic Church again, becoming the Church again, proclaiming the kingship of Jesus Christ again, restoring sanity in the Church once again. Yeah, because even when it comes to this question of who killed Charlie Kirk, the answer is rife with apocalyptic possibilities. We all know this. Charlie Kirk was obviously and manifestly moving away from Christian Zionism towards Catholicism. And that was a huge problem. That was a huge problem for the state of Israel, for people in the Israeli government. Right? There's no point in denying that, right? Charlie was the most powerful conservative influencer of young Americans under 30 in the country. And he was having a serious change of heart on Israel.
I've been to Israel many times. The whole country's a fortress. When I first heard this story, I still have the same gut instinct that I did initially. I find this very hard to believe. I've been to that Gaza border. You cannot go 10 feet without running into a 19-year-old with an AR-15 or an automatic machine gun that's an IDF soldier. Right? The whole country is surveilled. I'm not willing to go so far that saying that Netanyahu knew or there was intelligence here, but I think some questions need to be asked. Was there a stand down order? Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. Wow. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question.
He did not like Bibi Netanyahu, and he said that to me many times, and he said it to people around him many times. He felt that Bibi Netanyahu was a very destructive force. He was appalled by what was happening in Gaza. He was, above all, resentful that he believed Netanyahu was using the United States to prosecute his wars.
Again, I have no idea who killed Charlie Kirk. But did he incur the wrath of Israel? Could be. Seems like it. Seems likely. I mean, they bankrolled him. He used to be a huge proponent of Israel, and he changed his mind when he found out when he got more information about what was really happening over there, you know? So I have no idea who killed the man. But with that statement, and given the radical extremism of Zionists, and they are radical, the fundamentalism, the extremism, it could have been a lot of people. Because remember, in saying what Charlie just said about the state of Israel and the people who run it, he was, in effect, standing against the Messiah.
40 years ago, when Netanyahu was Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, he met Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the leader of the Chabad Lubavitch movement, known simply as the Rebbe. The Rebbe reportedly believed Netanyahu had a mission from God to prepare Israel for the coming of the Messiah, or in Hebrew, the Moshiach. Over the next decade, the two men developed a close relationship.
So yeah, this is apocalyptic. This is Christianity versus Judaism. This is biblical. This is powerful stuff. They keep quoting the Bible at us, right? So Charlie Kirk found himself in the middle of an apocalyptic moment that had everything to do with the Word of God, right? Because now that same Messiah is literally trying to terrify the entire world, every one of us.
Iran is developing now ballistic missiles that are intercontinental ballistic missiles for 8,000 kilometer range. What does that mean? They add another 3,000 kilometers, and they've got under their atomic guns, the New York City in target, Washington, Boston, Miami, Mar-a-Lago.
Man, that guy is something. I know a lot of you didn't agree with me, but from the beginning, this guy's been what? He's been at it for 17 years on and off. He just somehow keeps getting elected back in here. There's been a genocide going on. People don't want to believe it because they watch Mark Levin, all these operatives. They watch, what's that kid? The little goofy one, Daily Wire. Shapiro. They watch Shapiro. They get a whole different narrative there. And they're like, oh, you're an anti-Semite if you question the slaughter of 61,000 people in Palestine just in the past 2 years.
This is the closest thing to the Holocaust that any of us have lived through. But the fact is now Bibi and the Israeli hard-right government has a mandate. I got to be careful the way I say this. They're going to try to ethnically cleanse Gaza.
But thank God, for the moment, Donald Trump has evidently brokered some sort of a ceasefire, and I really truly hope so. Obviously, that's what we've been working for down here for 2 years, longer than that, but for 2 years specifically, especially, I'm not holding my breath over the ceasefire with Israel, because Donald Trump and Tony Blair, Tony Blair. England's former PM, Tony Blair, that guy. They're going to take it from here, and they're going to establish some sort of beautiful, beautiful Shangri-La over there in Gaza.
In Gaza, after this hostage prisoner exchange and phase withdrawal, negotiations over the next big question will really begin. Who will run Gaza? In Trump's plan, this would be an international board, chaired by him and run by former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair.
The Board of Peace, we call it. The Board of Peace. Sort of a beautiful name, the Board of Peace.
Now, reports are that Hamas has rejected this in negotiation and that they want a Palestinian technocratic government. But Netanyahu will not okay anything that could be used as a launchpad to a Palestinian state. So this board is one way to get around that. Now, the reaction to Tony Blair being in the mix has been strong.
Bringing in Tony Blair? For God's sake.
Blair shouldn't be anywhere near Gaza.
And I do wonder, before I get close, and I do wonder, because back when we were first getting involved with this, and 2 years ago, calling for a ceasefire, calling for a peace deal, calling for the end of the slaughter and the genocide, right? My critics were all calling me an anti-Semite for saying, stop the genocide. My critics would say, you can't negotiate with terrorists. That's Hamas. And Hamas is a terrorist group. Because they were watching Fox, you know. And so now I'm saying, okay, so I guess we can negotiate with Hamas. We can negotiate with terrorists because Donald Trump just did it. So wouldn't it have been nice if we had negotiated with the terrorists originally, to begin with, if we had stopped the madness to begin with, so that 61,000 people would not, including Palestinian Christians, would not have had to die, be slaughtered in the meantime, and many hundreds of thousands more have starved to death. Wouldn't it have been nice? This is why we keep saying, stop watching your TV, stop falling for the current thing, stop believing the line on Fox News or CNN or any of the other places that are telling you to care about things that you know are politically driven, right? Motivated. Just do it right away. Don't wait 2 years. Man, why 2 years? Why did we have to wait? Why is it okay to call for peace now, but it wasn't then? When the whole world, I tell you why, because the whole world turned on this, what was happening, this genocide in Gaza, and they really didn't have much of a choice. We better do something here because nobody's on our side anymore, right? But back then, people were like, shut up, Michael Mann, you hater. Israel has a right to defend herself. How many times do we hear that? Israel has a right to defend herself. Remember? Israel has the right to defend herself. And now they're out there screaming for a Nobel Peace Prize for Donald Trump because he thought that peace, evidently, trumps Israel's right to defend herself. He evidently thought peace was more important. Now all the MAGA people, he needs a Nobel Peace Prize for that. 2 years ago, Israel has a right to defend herself against those terrorists. You see how you just being like a weather vane? Just whoo, 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 round and round with whatever they're telling you on TV? Do I trust this peace deal? Of course not. Why would I do something so stupid? Of course not. There is madness everywhere right now. And that's why the most important thing that we can do is what we just did for a weekend, drove it home at the Catholic United Conference. The most important thing that we can do is keep our heads down, question everything, stay united, say your prayers, pray the rosary, proclaim the kingship of Jesus Christ louder than ever before. Because what's happening right now is a powder keg. It's getting ready to blow up all over the world, right? And like it or not, all is not well in what's left of Christian America. I'm just stunned here. I mean, that Donald Trump, the Trump administration's Food and Drug Administration, just greenlit a generic version of the abortion drug mifepristone. The abortion pills that we were talking about last year, there's a new version of it that's been approved. This is not an election year. And there's a lot of people who are really furious, and rightfully so, by this.
Imagine popping a pill at home to end a pregnancy, and now the government just made it even easier. The FDA has approved a second generic version of the abortion drug mifepristone. It's from Avita Solutions, a telehealth provider. This could ramp up medication abortions nationwide. Mifepristone first hit the market in 2000. Today, it's used in about 63% of U.S. abortions, way up from 39% in 2017. That jump ties to looser rules rules like skipping in-person visits and Roe v. Wade's fall shutting down clinics. But conservatives are erupting in anger. Senator Josh Hawley calls it shocking. He's blasting the FDA for pushing ahead amid a promised safety review. Hawley wants Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and FDA Commissioner Marty McCary to probe the drug's risks. He points to studies showing nearly 11% of women hit serious complications within 45 days. Critics worry relaxed reporting and no ultrasounds could miss dangers. Kennedy told lawmakers the Biden years twisted data to bury safety red flags. An HHS spokesman says the FDA has no real option. Generics just need to match the original, no fresh safety proof needed. Still, anti-abortion groups like SBA Pro-Life America are ripping it as reckless. They warn it'll flood the market with cheap pills that endanger women and ignore state laws.
So, no, friends, you got to look at this honestly, right? If we're really going to come up with a solution, it's like alcoholics. You got to admit you got a problem if you're a substance abuser before you can ever fix it, right? We have a big problem. And now we've all moved on. We're all adults. There's no Kamala Harris around to blame for this one. This is not an election year. You know, we all hoped and prayed that they were going to really do something about the abortion pills, which account for most of the abortions in this country. And now it's going the other way. So it's Christmas for everybody because we're all just excited about our borders being finally, protected. That's great. We got a lot of things on the goodies list that are going our favor, and we're all really excited about that. But guess who's not excited? Guess who's not? It's not Christmas. For whom it's not Christmas. The babies again, Babies are dying all over the place. Babies are being murdered all over this country more than ever before, whether we like it or not. For them, America's not being made great again. America is not great again, not for them. It's getting worse and worse. So on the moral front, friends, which is the way we get out of this, this is where the true restoration, our salvation, our help is in the name of the Lord and his morality and his church and his word. That's the only way out of here. And we're all becoming, in the name of conservatism, de facto liberals. Woke liberals. If we don't be careful, if we don't do something right now. And again, you saw what Pope Leo said with respect to Cardinal Cupich and Dick Durbin and abortion, and you can see where the problem is.
Someone who says I'm against abortion but says I'm in favor of the death penalty is not really pro-life. So someone who says that I'm against abortion but I'm in agreement with the inhuman treatment of immigrants who are in the United States, I don't know if that's pro-life.
The Catholic Church has no confidence in her own moral teaching, so I'm perfectly happy to lay the blame where it belongs as a traditional Catholic at the feet of this Church of Vatican II, this Church of Accompaniment. That's the problem, but we still have to deal with the fallout, with what it means. Because we're living here. Our children are growing up here. And on the moral front in America, it's moving the wrong direction, friends. It truly is. Yes, I too would prefer not to have men on my daughter's, ballet class or soccer team. We get that. We're pretty strong on that one. But what about everything else? What about abortion pills? What about gay marriage? Nobody even talks about it anymore. What about premarital sex? What about divorce? All these moral issues that we don't even talk about them anymore. And this is with conservatives at the helm. Conservatives are doing this now. They're just ignoring all the stuff that matters most. And we need to stand up and fight back as Catholics. We need to open our eyes, have tough conversations like this, stand up and fight back before the asteroid hits. Before when the Son of Man returns, he finds no faith. Because we just spit it all away. We just let it all go in the name of staying safe. Right? Can't do that. We've got to stop the bleeding. You say, yeah, but man, Bill Maher and so many liberals are, they're Democrats. They're warming up to the Trump agenda and everything. Well, of course they are, friends, and why wouldn't they? Do you remember what we've been saying for about 30 years? That when it comes to that diabolical Democrat Party, what was the most important thing for them? A woman's right to choose since 1973. Abortion. It's always been about the diabolical blood anti-sacrament of abortion. That's all they ever cared about. That's the only thing that ever divided us, truly. Everything else is window dressing. When Kamala Harris and the insufferable Tim Walz decided they were going to start running their campaign before the last election cycle, where did they do it? In a Minneapolis Planned Parenthood. That's where they met. That's where they had the press. That's where the press conference was when they kicked off their thing. It's always been about abortion. So if the good guys, if the GOP, if the Republicans, if the pro-lifers, if they give up on that front, well, there's no problem for the Bill Maher's and for the Democrats and for everybody else out there to say, you know what, let's go over here where we can keep our goodies a little bit more than we can these crazy lunatic Democrats. You see what I'm saying? They're joining us because essentially we're becoming them. We're becoming them. Especially on issues such as abortion and gay marriage. We've given up. And as we know from our history books, when it comes to infanticide and homosexuality, that's the end. That's the sign. That's a telltale sign of the end of a civilization every single time. And we need to have that out so that we can maybe apply influence to the present administration, right? We have to have these conversations. And I'm out of time, so this is something we're going to talk about for a long time here over the next few months. But I just want to say in closing, there is an awakening on this. So many people are wide awake. I'm so proud of people for being able to see what's going on here. When there are a lot of goodies coming our way, when there are some really good things to see, and I'm glad that there are, but people are still more discerning than they've ever been, I think. Good people are more discerning. They understand there's a price to pay for some of this, and they're not willing to pay it. God bless them. And I met many of you. I was so grateful and glad to meet a lot of you last weekend. We had these conversations, and I can just feel it. People are waking up all around the world. It's fantastic. We'll see that again in Rome next week. People are waking up. Bishops, cardinals waking up, you know. So I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody who can make it to Rome. We can't forget to get there if you can. Pray for the success of it if you can't. Don't lose hope. The revolution is running out of ideas. Blessing popsicles are running out of ideas, right? They're running out of steam. There's nothing left now but the reign of Christ the King, the proclamation of the reign of Christ the King to get stronger and stronger and stronger. That's exactly what's happening. So don't be fooled. Turn off your TV, pray your rosary, keep the faith, unite the clans. God bless you all, and we'll see you next week.